Hey there, I'm Lee Rowley, and this is Lee After Dark. Why? Because there's more to being a business leader than just business. Each episode, one brave entrepreneur ejects the elevator pitch and just gets real. Today, I'd like to welcome Richard. Richard, how are you today?
I'm fine. Just getting over a cold, but otherwise hunky dory.
Okay, well, if you're fighting a cold and you're still here, kudos to you, and we're thrilled to have you. So, and as you say, hopefully I won't catch it. So, the rules are simple. For the next 20 minutes, we can talk about anything you want except your business. After that, you'll have 5 minutes to pitch up a storm. So, but if you talk about your business during the interview, you lose a minute of pitch time for each infraction. It's just kind of a game show thing. We don't really keep score, but I have to say it. Are you ready to play?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let me go ahead and set our timer here. And all right, we got 20 minutes on the clock. Where do you have a place to start, or should I pick?
You pick. I've given you a bit of background, so I think wherever you think your listeners might be interested.
Okay. Well, I got to start with I lived in Russia for 4 years. That's the one that piqued my interest the most. So I got to hear about that.
Okay, well, dobry wieczór, as they say. It's a good evening, or dobry utro, good morning. So yeah, it was back in the 90s. The Berlin Wall had just come down, and obviously we'd won the Cold War. So it was time to go and teach these Russians how to do business. So you can imagine. So there I was in my mid-20s, heading over to Moscow, working for a big IT company. And boy, did I have a rude awakening, because these guys, they knew about business, and they sorted me out pretty quick. But I had a fantastic time. Don't believe anything you read in the papers about Russians. They're just a warm, welcoming people, the same as people in the Midwest or in Europe.
Interesting.
But I went over there, created a business. And just had a wild time, because you can imagine when I first moved over, population of about 6 million people in Moscow, and 3 supermarkets.
Really?
So there was Russian shops, but as a Westerner, I wanted the supermarket experience, but basically massively undercatered. There was business was changing from the old communist system into the capitalist system, so new places were opening up all the time, and it was really exciting to be there at something that's fresh. And we used to go to some great restaurants and bars, but for a period of about a year, between sort of mid-late 94 to mid-95, possibly even as late as mid-96, I started to get worried, because every bar or restaurant I went to, about a week later, somebody would get shot. So
okay.
it was the Wild West or the Wild East. And you do tend to worry, but then you realise that actually it was just bad guys on bad guys. But because the bad guys have got money, they used to go to the same places that I used to go. So you got a bit. That was a little bit scary. But it got particularly scary when there was a shopping centre I visited, and somebody got shot in the car park, and they were an innocent bystander. So that's when you know that things are a bit dangerous. But the police intervened at that point and basically told the mafia, or the Russian mafia, to clean up their act. And after that, things were peaceful again. So basically, the criminals just carried on killing each other, but there weren't any more incidents of innocent bystanders getting shot.
Okay.
But it was a fun time. Trying to think what some of the crazy stuff I used to get up to. My parents came over for a visit, so you can the airport. Sheremetyevo Airport, which is, I think now is only doing domestic travel in Moscow. I picked them up in my Volvo, and we used to drive Volvos, is because in the 90s, a Volvo was like driving a tank. I mean, it was just, you could bounce it through potholes, could cope with the snow, and pretty robust cars. And I picked them up and I thought, what can I do with them that's going to be really interesting and exciting for their first visit to Moscow? I'll drive through Red Square. That's got to be good, hasn't it? I mean, you go to the States, you go to Washington, what are you going to drive down Pennsylvania Avenue? So I thought I'd drive. So anyway, I go through the back streets, get to the corner of Red Square, at the end where you've got St. Basil's Cathedral, which everybody will have seen because it's the one with the fancy domes and all the colours.
Sure.
And the rules had changed since I last went through there. So I get stopped by the GAI, which is the traffic police in Moscow. I get told to get out of my car. So my parents have been in the country for about 45 minutes. Their first experience of Russian officialdom is their son getting told to get out of the car, walk into what can only be described as a wardrobe, which was basically it was a police checkpoint, but it was only in the side of a building about the size of a wardrobe. I disappear into this little cubbyhole to be asked, what I was playing at, trying to drive through Red Square, and I end up paying a fine.
Ooh.
But I say a fine, for so a donation to the orphans fund. And so when I do that, I then say to the guy, "Oh, now I've paid. Can I go through the square?" And the guy says, "Niet." I obviously hadn't paid him enough, but so I got back into the car and drive back to my flat, and my parents, they were just dumbfounded. But it was some of part of the crazy stuff that we used to get up to in those days. I mean, now you wouldn't try it at all because the place has changed. But there was sort of like free rule, It was very free and easy, and even the policeman. I mean, he knew I was breaking the rules. I knew I was breaking the rules, but at the end of the day, it was just like, get on your way, get back in the car, and go home. Nobody really took it that seriously.
Yep. Thanks for the donation.
Exactly. I mean, the other thing that Russia is. I used to go down when I used to go out shopping, and you'd be in a shop and you'd be trying to buy something, and they'd have this system where all the things you were trying to buy were on shelves behind the counter. So you can think of like an old-fashioned store in Bloomington, Illinois, where you were, in the 1920s when there was no, behind the counter, you'd point at what you wanted, and then they would serve you, and you'd pay it. None of this self-service that we're used to today. Now the trouble is, I've told you all the Russian I can speak, more or less.
Okay.
So
we've covered
it. We've covered it. So I would be trying to struggle to buy things, and then you get a tap on the shoulder, and somebody would then want to practice their English with you and help you buy stuff. And that happened to me all the time. There was just so many people just trying to help you and being just super friendly.
Okay.
Other crazy stuff that we used to get up to. So it was it was a big IT company that I worked for, and we had one guy there who worked for us that had been in Moscow for about 3 or 4 years, and if you remember, in the 80s there was the treaties between the US and Russia, which Reagan did to actually start to decommission nuclear weapons and all the biological weapons and all that. Well, the Russians knew how many weapons they got, and they knew roughly where they were, but they didn't necessarily. And the people who were looking after them knew where they were because they were looking after them in Smolensk, the middle of Siberia, or in East. But Moscow wouldn't necessarily know the exact number of missiles in each location. So
wow.
as part of the deal, the Americans, the US government, basically got funded an audit system to the Russian nuclear weapons directorate, or whatever it was called, to basically do inventory control on the nuclear weapons. So my team were part of the team that actually did all the training of the Russian staff on these systems. Anyway, the part of this story is one of the guys involved in that, who used to go to these different sites and help count the missiles. He was followed by the KGB, because obviously everybody gets a follower when you're a US national in those days. Anyway, he ended up marrying her. So he married his KGB follower, and to this day, I'm not sure whether or not she defected or if she was just a very good KGB agent.
That is amazing.
So they just absolute crazy stuff, which was really good fun. Okay, I think have I lost? No, I thought I'd lost you. Then my screensaver came on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
We're good. Wow, it's interesting to hear about life just during that period, because I know it was, it had to be a confusing time for people who had lived through the communist regime and through the Cold War, and then suddenly there's this freedom, and we don't really know what the heck to do with it, or sort of freedom. It had to be a bewildering experience for everybody.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like 10 years earlier, I was, watching duck and cover, adverts, and watching films like Threads, which was about nuclear weapons coming from Russia and dropping on my hometown of Sheffield. And
right.
then, shortly after that, I'm actually over there. It was fascinating. I went to the Soviet Army Museum. And the U-2 plane in the 60s that went over, which everybody denied that it was taking photographs of the missile silos in Russia.
Okay.
Powell was his name, I think. Anyway, and it was a show trial and all that. Anyway, I saw his ejector seat and all those paraphernalia. It was all like in like their equivalent of like the Smithsonian, and it was really good. All this sort of stuff that you just heard about or seen on TV, and suddenly you get access to it. It's fantastic.
That would definitely be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, but if you get a chance to go, I absolutely recommend it. Forget all the stuff that you're hearing about, that's gone on. Just get out there, go and meet some real Russians, have a beer with them, have a piroshki, which is like a little pie, and you'll find that a working class Russian or a Russian office worker is no different to somebody out of anywhere in the US or Europe. As Sting always said, the Russians love their children too.
That's really cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing that glimpse into that. It's really fascinating to me, as I know it will be to our listeners too. So you got a couple minutes left, so much time to thoroughly cover a topic, but if you've got any last words or anything personal you'd like to throw out there, then
I suppose this. And so going back to Russia, I'm trying to think what else I used to do. Oh, the other thing that I was also in the Boy Scouts when I was a kid. So the Eagle Scout, like the Eagle Scouts, and we went to an international camp just outside of Moscow once, and we were acting as camp leaders for this scout camp, and then we decided one of the girls at the camp lost their passport, and because we were living in Moscow, we said we'd help her out to try to get a new passport from the British Embassy, and we drove down a motorway into Moscow, and we got stopped by the police, pulled over. Apparently, I was speeding. So I paid my fine, get back into the car, drive. About 5 miles, I get stopped again. I'm speeding. Only I'm not speeding, and I just said to the policeman, "They've called you, haven't they?" And what happens is, once they find a rich foreigner going down the motorway, they used to ring to the next checkpoint and make sure you got pulled over. But because I've been living there for 3 years, I knew what the scam was, and I just told them to whistle, and I got away with that. But it was just again, those one of now this, so I know you've got a mixed. No, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say you got mixed listenership or viewer team here, but we used to take the piss out of the Americans a little bit, I must admit. So, but I won't go into that particular joke. But there was one press briefing I went to there where they got somebody from CNN talking, and it was quite an interesting talk about. It was the same time just after the stuff that had been going on in Bosnia and Serbia, and. One of the Russians said that, asked the journalist on the stage, they said, we'll know the Americans think Russia is peaceful when CNN removed the tank. And what CNN had done was when after the civil war in Yugoslavia, they had an old armoured car that they used to go around Yugoslavia to protect the journalists from shrapnel and stray bullets.
Okay, yeah.
And they had nowhere to they didn't know where to park it, and they ended up parking it in the CNN compound in Moscow. It's old Soviet tank. Anyway, yeah. So more of that another time, but it was a colourful time. Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing the experiences with it. It's been absolutely fascinating. You have successfully completed the 20-minute not talking about your business Lee After Dark challenge. So, because I am a man of my word, I would like to give you 5 minutes to talk about your business, an offer, how people can get in touch with you. The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, well, so I'm for 30 years, I've worked for big IT companies selling big IT stuff. And about 2 months ago, I've set up my own business. I'm a one-man band. And what I do two things. I help companies come to the UK, particularly financial services companies. So if they're coming to the UK, and you often find that they don't know that although we have the same language, that actually divides us. It's slightly different culture over here. People don't necessarily have the contacts. I basically help those businesses get established in the UK. And the second thing that I do as a business for small businesses based in the UK, I help them raise finance. I'm a commercial loans broker, and it's fairly easy to get hold of me. I think I'm there's only 2 Richard Hollings on LinkedIn, and the other one produces records for U2. So I'm not him.
You're not that guy. Okay. Well, I've got one of those too, and he is a politician somewhere in England. And every time I get a Google alert and Lee Rowley, it's that guy, and I'm like, fine, someday it'll be me. But until then, I'm good with the doppelganger. So, okay, they can find you on LinkedIn. Any place else that you can think of, or anything else you want to share?
Well, that's the best place to find me, and I'm an easygoing guy, happy to help people. If you need a loan, I can help you out. Because I've worked in business for 30 years. I'd like to feel that I could understand your business and then find the right loan for you. My background isn't as a banker, so I'm not selling finance, if you like. I'm helping people get finance. I think there's a subtle difference.
Really cool. Well, I appreciate the work that you're doing. And again, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We are out of time, but if you found Lee After Dark more entertaining and relevant than most of the Drac out there, subscribe to the Lee After Dark YouTube channel and now get Lee After Dark in your pants. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Stitcher, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and who the heck knows where else. So you can enjoy us wherever you stick your phone. Until next time, this is Lee Rowley with my new friend Richard. Be well and be present.